The advice and opinions expressed by Dr. Granpeesheh and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Our son is almost 23 years old, and he only started having ABA therapy at almost 21 years old. This year, our health insurance, which is, should I say the insurance company or not?
Sure.
UHC is suddenly reducing the hours from 10 hours weekly to 7 hours. We believe he is still benefiting from ABA therapies, but it seems UHC wants to accelerate the process of stopping ABA. We think we need to appeal their decision. We need help to prepare for the appeal. And Jorge says, yes, that is his question. Wonderful.
Great.
Marina will be so happy that you're watching, and I'm happy we got your question in.
Yeah. Well, let's see if there's any way we can help you. So, Jorge, it's let's start with it's really, really hard to get insurance companies, all of them, to continue funding when the child or adult is in their 20s. The general belief is that ABA should be more focused on younger children, which isn't really true because ABA is a teaching technique and it is effective across the board. The unfortunate truth, though, is that even though there are there's a lot of published literature on how ABA is effective for older individuals, payers don't really recognize that. So I think you have to do two things. You have to be, actually more than three things. One is your supervisor, and I don't know what company you're with, but you have a BCBA, assumedly, and that person has to be your ally and has to help you with this process. The process of appeal often works, don't get me wrong. Okay. It is often successful. In fact, I think it's more successful in our world than it is in just medical appeals.
Yep.
So don't be encouraged, don't be discouraged, and definitely you can appeal, but you need a few things in order to appeal. One is you need to show that your son is still learning. So you need to show that your son has benefited from the ABA that he has received. And the way you do that is whoever is providing it should be able to either write a report or just show data that says, hey, he used to do these things, now he's learned these things over the past year, whatever it is, 6 months. Usually, by the way, funding periods are 6 months periods. So it's kind of like, what has he done over the last 6 months? What did he do the previous? What has he learned? Okay. And get that detail from them and get them into a report. It doesn't have to be a fancy report. It just needs to be proof that your son has learned. Second thing is you have to have a very focused goal. So, your son being in his 20s, it's not a comprehensive program. It's a focused program. That means that they have to have a very specific goal. For example, he is learning, safety skills. That's just an example. There are specific things that your payer, your insurance company, will not fund. For example, they will not fund anything that is not associated to the diagnosis of autism. So they're not going to fund anything academic, for example. They're not going to fund vocational skills, like if we're trying to teach him a job. They're not interested in funding those things. What they are interested in funding is social communication, things that have to do with stereotypical behavior. Like I am reducing his obsessions with certain objects. I am teaching him how to socialize. I'm teaching him how to get up in the morning without having a massive tantrum and get dressed and get ready. If we stop therapy, these challenging behaviors are going to heavily impact him. We have other people in the house who will be unsafe. There are lots of things they do fund because what they're trying to do is to give you enough access to therapy to kind of help make things safe. I would really discuss this with your supervisor and pick 1 or 2 focuses that you want to keep working on. And then what they have to do is say, hey, he really needs these things. And if we reduce his hours by 3 hours a week, he's not going to get them. He's not going to catch up. He's not going to learn. That's what goes into the appeal is, A, he is able to learn using this modality, and B, he still really needs this stuff, okay? And we will continue to teach him. So that's sort of how an appeal goes. I don't know if we have literature. We used to do tons of appeals for parents.
Yes.
And we might be able to find something. I'll have to ask Julie if we have documented. Like we had a packet that we would give parents.
Yeah.
Don't know if it's updated now.
I can tell you a couple of things from it, though. That the first thing, for anybody, if you get denied anything for your insurance, is that you need to ask for the denial in writing.
Yes.
If they're telling you over the phone, you need to get the denial in writing. They won't fax it to you.
Yeah.
That you have to get it mailed to you. And when you get it, when you flip over the paper, there's a thing that says how to appeal.
Yeah.
And that's what you want. But they have to give you a reason why. And that's critical.
Yes.
On that packet of things that we had, because there's one thing that we find a lot of people, sometimes the people doing the denial were just told to do the denial. They don't really understand it.
Yeah.
I'm saying that based on what we've seen. I don't know. But if there is anything in the denial that says age, you got them.
Yeah.
You got 'em.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
And a lot of times it does. And you mentioned Julie Cornack. We need to have her back on to talk about MAPIA.
Yeah.
But MAPIA is the Mental Health Parity and Equity Act. And basically what it says is if your insurance would pay for this service for someone else at the same age who has a different issue, then they have to pay for it regardless of age. Even if your state has a law that says we don't pay for this past age 8.
Yeah.
So it is a way to take the ageism out of it. And we see families win an appeal on that on a regular basis.
Right.
But I have to tell you that it is very typical with appeals that you are going to lose on the first appeal. You just have to steel yourself to that, because for most, not all insurance, there's at least one where you have to go through 2 appeals. But for most insurance, the first appeal, you put the appeal in, and the people who review it are the exact same people who reviewed it the first time and denied it.
Yeah.
And so they will deny it again. You then appeal it the second time, and now independent people have to appeal it. And if you've done the things that Dr. Granpeesheh said to you, we see that families win. I would say a good 98% of the time they win on second appeal.
Yeah, they do. But you have to have someone on your side. Like this is very important. You have to have a professional on your side, because sometimes you got to know this. Like, I don't know if parents know this, that the provider that you're with, the person who is going to write that report that says this individual still needs it, if enough people in that company do it, UHC can turn around and say, we just don't want you guys in network anymore.
Yeah.
So so providers are also kind of they're walking a thin line, in the sense that they really want to ethically recommend what's appropriate for your child, but the insurance company is threatening them. And that happens quite a bit. That I'm not saying UHC did that, but it does happen. And so you might want to get an independent person to help. And that independent person could be a licensed psychologist who's going to do a full evaluation of your child. That'll cost a couple of $1,000s, but it'll give you this, the benefit of knowing you have this report that says your son continues to benefit from ABA, and that'll probably last you, honestly, a couple of years. So it's sometimes worth it. You need to have some professional, whether it's your current provider or someone else, say your son has benefited and that he continues to need it. Those 2 things are very important.
And since we're talking about this, there's a phrase that I use with parents all the time now, and this isn't for Jorge, this is for everybody else listening.
Yeah.
The phrase I use is use it or lose it.
Yeah.
Because if you have been given funding for a certain number of hours for your child, you want to be using it. Because if you don't, this is what will happen to you. Regardless of your child's age, if you had funding for 30 hours and you decide as a parent you only want to use 20, the next reauthorization that you come in, what I have seen is your insurance is going to say, we're going to give you 17.
Yeah.
Whereas if you had used the 30, maybe they would say, we're going to say 28.
Yeah.
So use it or lose it, or this will happen. And I will tell you, when you suddenly realize, oh my gosh, we just lost a bunch of our ABA, and it clicks in with you and you go to appeal, if you have a record of not using the hours, good luck.
Yeah, this is true.
It's going to be very
There's
hard
all
for
that
you.
stuff. That's true.
I want to say Lucy has written in and said, if you're in California, you can send the appeal to the regional center and request that they pay for services as they are the payer of last resort. You can also file a state complaint with the State Department of Managed Care. You can do all of those things. Unfortunately, he's not in California. I will say, though, that because there's so much of this happening, every regional center that I've been talking to lately is beleaguered again. Do you remember when there was a moment when they were paying for so much ABA before insurance?
Yes.
And then insurance kicked in, and the regional center was like, because we can't do it anymore.
Yes.
And now insurance has sort of, gotten that thing, but so many people are asking for help with copays,
right,
and asking the regional center and asking for the self-determination, that once again, regional centers' pockets are not deep anymore, you guys.
Right. And that's just California, right? So in other states, the regional center is this middleman in California that receives funding from the Department of Developmental Services. Now, in other states like Delaware, you should just get in touch with the Department of Developmental Services and see. Different states, by the way, Jorge, it has different names, but it is something that has to do with developmental disabilities, and they do often provide added funding. I would recommend you do that anyway because of two reasons. Like, for example, in California, the regional centers actually have advocates that will help you appeal your insurance simply because they don't really want to become responsible again. Yeah. The second reason I suggest that you get in touch with your Department of Developmental Disabilities or Services is that after age 13, usually there's additional funding that comes into play on top of your health insurance. Even if you continue to get insurance funding, there's additional funding from your state that is focused on other things like vocational skills, like teaching them vocational skills. So that also becomes important. You asked for a professional. I don't know a professional in Delaware. I would start with, I think the best, get in touch with the Autism Society of America or the Autism Society of Delaware. They probably have a list of professionals.
Don't forget, you can watch Ask Dr. Doreen live every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We hope to see you there.